on the main battlefield. Zhang Yi and his companions had fought with every ounce of strength, finally piercing the Hades gatekeeper's armor. Yet the relentless battle had made them acutely aware of the vast power disparity between themselves and the Hades gatekeeper. They were simply not on the same level. Zhang Yi had attempted only one attack against the Hades gatekeeper, using the Divine Realm Netherworld cleansing to strike his armor. Yet even now, with his ability index soaring to 28,000 points, he couldn't even draw a single drop of blood from the Hades gatekeeper. He had merely managed to chip away at the armor. Therefore, he had completely abandoned launching his own attacks. Instead, he resolved to coordinate his abilities with his allies nearby. He would stall the Hades gatekeeper, waiting for the investigation results from the region's headquarters. Or perhaps attempt to combine forces with Li Changgong's abilities to make the Hades gatekeeper bleed. "I've no more time to waste on you lot." The Hades gatekeeper had seen through the strength of these surface dwellers. The last vestiges of caution and apprehension vanished completely. The Hades gatekeeper raised both hands before his chest. "Time to end this tedious charade." A faint, contemptuous smile touched his lips. Did these fools truly believe such a crude maze array could trap him? His palms pressed together as black, supernatural energy began to gather within them. Black energy spheres, each containing suffocating power, formed. Even from a distance, Zhang Yi and the others felt a chill run through them. The black, almost tangible force began to slowly merge, coalescing into an even larger energy sphere. "What is he doing?" Li Changgong asked tensely. "A finishing move?" "No," Zhang Yi frowned. "We have the ghost train's protection. Launching a second attack against us makes little sense. Unless he's already figured out a way to pinpoint our location." But what was the best way to attack against such an ability, one that could infinitely traverse the void, rendering its position impossible to determine? The Hades gatekeeper provided his answer. The overwhelming power coalesced within his palms, forming a pure black sphere the size of a soccer ball. It seemed capable of swallowing the surrounding light itself. A single glance from Zhang Yi and the others nearly consumed their souls with terror. The Hades gatekeeper gave them a cold glance before suddenly transforming his hands into claws and slamming them down upon the energy sphere. Void Destiny. Centered on the Hades gatekeeper, a colossal force swept out toward the group, spreading instantaneously with a destructive force that threatened to obliterate everything in its path. That force brought Zhang Yi the scent of death. For the first time in his life, he felt the threat of death loom surprisingly close. He mustered every ounce of strength, pushing all his defensive techniques to their absolute limit to withstand the onslaught. Then he roared, "Dai Sheng!" Dai Sheng, drenched in sweat, activated the ability of the star cluster, without hesitation, shifting the entire ghost train. Boom! The force instantly swept across their location and continued to radiate outward in all directions with unstoppable momentum. Wave upon wave of power, like a tsunami, swept through the heart of Tianhai City and kept spreading outward. The ghost train Zhang Yi and his group had just materialized from the void in another corner of Tianhai City was hit by this terrifying wave once more. And this time, it struck a full 50 kilometers from their previous location. Zhang Yi and the others paled in shock. The power of the underworld gatekeeper's strike was comparable to a medium-yield reaper of love. Zhang Yi understood Tianhai City was utterly doomed. But now was not the time for such thoughts, survival was paramount. Li Changgong's face turned deathly pale, while Shang Daowen and Ho Tua's eyes darkened with gravity. Only Zhang Yi wasted no words. On the brink of life and death, light swirled within his right eye as he activated his most formidable defensive ability. Boom! The commotion in Tianhai City was so immense that even mutants on distant battlefields could hear it clearly. Giant Blade Silver Armor instinctively turned his gaze toward Tianhai City. A satisfied smile touched his lips before he shifted his focus to his opponent, the Black Emperor Chen Xuanba. Both sides had endured countless rounds of fierce combat. Similarly as enhancement-type mutants, their battle had devolved into relentless close-quarters combat. Yet, their attacks and defenses were both exceptionally formidable, making it incredibly difficult for either to secure a decisive kill. Giant Blade declared, "Feel that power? That is the might of our Wuluan Empire's elite. Has despair already gripped your heart?" Chen Xuanba and Han Shan's expressions darkened. Even from a great distance, they could distinctly sense that force. As Epsilon-tier mutants, they understood its terrifying strength, powerful enough to obliterate them at will. Chen Xuanba pressed down his cap brim, his gaze sharp as a military sword. "I believe in our allied comrades. They can defend our homeland." He raised his fist toward Giant Blade, his right index finger arrogantly pointing at the man's head, "And as a soldier, my mission is to eliminate you right here." Giant Blade burst into laughter, as if hearing the most absurd joke imaginable. "Ha ha ha! Foolish humans! Is it because your despair is too great that you refuse to accept reality? Then let me personally escort you to your death." Now convinced of their victory, Giant Blade's confidence soared. Like a fighter jet, he charged straight at Chen Xuanba. The same situation unfolded simultaneously across all other battlefields. The slaughter raged with unimaginable ferocity. No one had any room to retreat. Meanwhile, Liang Yu and Flower remained on standby in the frozen wasteland. Flower's massive form lay sprawled across the snow, eyes narrowed. Sensing the power erupting from Tianhai City, a flicker of concern crossed its gaze. Yet, considering Zhang Yi's strength, it slowly blinked. Its master never needed it to worry. Perhaps Zhang Yi wasn't the strongest, always facing foes more formidable than himself, but he had never lost. Because Zhang Yi never placed himself in mortal danger. This was something Flower believed in deeply. Liang Yu leaned against Flower, cradling Dragon's Roar in her arms. The Dragon's Roar of today was no longer the Edelman metal weapon it once was. After Liu Karen's repeated refinements, it had become a terrifying killing tool, dark silver throughout, its sword adorned with dragon patterns. Through countless battles, it had drunk the blood of too many powerful foes. Even now, Liang Yu could sense a certain resonance with it. Her eyes were closed, her entire being in a meditative state, keeping both body and spirit at peak readiness. The moment was drawing near. As the mobile strike force, they would enter the fray at the very peak of the battle's intensity. Then, they would become the final straw that broke the camel's back. The powerful energy fluctuations erupting from Tianhai City have now drawn the attention of global powers. Though many factions have not directly engaged in this war, all eyes are fixed upon the battlefields of Huashu Kingdom. This was the largest-scale conflict on the surface since the apocalypse, pitting humanity directly against the underground civilization. This battle would expose numerous critical issues. For instance, the true strength of the Huashu Kingdom. For instance, just how formidable the underground civilization's power truly was. Such intelligence was of paramount importance, compelling them to stay awake through the night to closely monitor the battle's progress. Of course, the opposite side of the planet was still experiencing daylight. Countless satellites broadcast the battle in real time. They might not see every detail on the battlefield, such footage was strictly forbidden by the three major powers, Huashu Kingdom, Columbia, and Fremons. But by monitoring the energy fluctuations here, they could deduce the basic course of the battle. The terrifying energy erupting from Tianhai City rivaled that of a small to medium-sized Reaper of Love. Such power caused even Pope Alexander X of the Holy See, seated in Vatican, to grow grave. Have those heretics from the underworld grown so powerful? If they continue their invasion, it may disrupt the Eastern Orthodox Church's grand design. Alexander X hooked nose wrinkled, displeasure creasing his deeply lined face. Behind him, Cardinal Arnold Olive held the sacred scriptures and respectfully replied, "But now, sending reinforcements seems too late." The battle between the top-tier mutants would soon conclude. Even if they boarded the fastest aircraft from the planet's far side immediately, they would likely arrive too late to make a difference. They might even lose their own lives in the process. Oh, well, that can't be helped. I only intended to teach them a lesson. I never imagined things would turn out this way. Alexander X rubbed his temples, then suddenly smiled. But I refuse to believe a nation of Huashu Kingdom's level could be destroyed so easily. On a mysterious island in the middle of the ocean, a blizzard raged outside the windows while a roaring fire burned in the hearth. Montesquieu, chairman of the pupil organization, sat in his chair, listening to his subordinates report. King's servant, Mildred Bratt, described the abnormal energy fluctuations in Tianhai City and voiced his concerns. Both Hotu and Chaos are subjects of our investigation, but the foes they face in this battle are simply too formidable. There's even a possibility they might perish in this conflict. Bratt cautiously glanced at Montesquieu, hoping his mentor would make a wise decision at this critical moment. Should we intervene? Montesquieu kept his head bowed, rubbing his rough fingers. Perhaps due to the fireplace burning too long, the air felt dry. No. Now is not the time for us to act. Once we expose our strength to the light of day, those lackeys won't let us off easily. A faint, mocking smile touched his lips. His words held contempt for the lackeys he mentioned, yet showed little genuine concern. But if they truly lose, it will deal a significant blow to our sacrilege plan. Bratt voiced his concern. Montesquieu slowly closed his eyes. After a long moment, he opened them again. His gaze, far from clouded by age, shone with a piercing intelligence. They won't fail so easily. As one of the most powerful nations of humanity on this planet, if they were to be annihilated so easily, then humanity itself should vanish from this world. Mildred Bratt fell silent for several seconds upon hearing these words, ultimately saying nothing more. For he knew Montesquieu spoke the truth. If even Huashu Kingdom could fall to the underground civilization, who could possibly withstand the apocalypse that would only grow more brutal? Just a mountain range away from Huashu Kingdom lay Brahma, now the world's most populous nation. Naturally, they closely monitored everything unfolding in Huashu Kingdom. At the war's onset, Huashu Kingdom had sought their aid, requesting a contingent of mutants to support them. But Brahma's leadership, spearheaded by the 8 tribes, had flatly refused. Originally, due to the unique relationship between the two nations and their complex, historical ties, Huashu did not dwell on this refusal, merely noting it privately. Yet Brahma took it to heart. For years, they had fervently sought to surpass Huashu Kingdom and become the most powerful nation in Asia. Thus, the invasion by the Wuluan Empire appeared to them as an exceptional opportunity. The Brahma alliance, however, was already a fractured entity. Powerful factions across the land had carved out their own territories, forming a loose confederation. Similar to Huashu Kingdom's 6 major regions or Colombia's numerous states, a supreme governing body composed of high-level mutants held ultimate authority here. Munak City stood at the very source of this governing body. Within the Bahawala Temple of Munak City, the leaders of the 8 tribes' Heavenly Dragon, representing the most powerful organizations of Brahma, were largely assembled here today. All were present except for the Garuda faction led by Gao Changkong. Anand Sharma, the mightiest being in Brahma bearing the title of Emperor Indra, sat cross-legged atop the temple platform. His upper body and legs were bare, clad only in sacred traditional ethnic robes. One muscular leg dangled over the edge of the platform, his countenance solemn and majestic, resembling the true celestial emperor depicted in the murals. Below him, on either side, the leaders of the 8 tribes sat cross-legged upon cushions, seemingly awaiting the arrival of some news. From outside the temple, a mutant hurriedly ran in, kneeling before the assembly. Celestial Emperor. We've just received the latest intelligence. The battle in Tianhai City of Huashu Kingdom has intensified. The underground civilization's powerful beings are exceptionally formidable. Huashu's extraordinary beings may not hold out much longer. Upon hearing this news, the leaders of the 8 tribes all revealed pleased smiles. They exchanged satisfied glances and nodded to one another. Emperor Indra slowly opened his tightly closed eyes. Oh? I hadn't anticipated the underground civilization's strength to be so formidable. But this is for the best. Once the Huashu Kingdom has endured sufficient blows, they will relinquish their throne as Asia's foremost power. From this day forward, we of the Brahma will surpass them and become the guardian deities of this region. After Emperor Indra finished speaking, one of the leaders among the 8 tribes below suddenly spoke up. Having suffered such a devastating blow, the Huashu kingdom may well be destroyed outright. Even if it survives, it will be severely weakened and incapable of shouldering the responsibilities of a great eastern nation. He looked around at the others, urging them earnestly, "Now is the time for us, the Brahma realm, to demonstrate our strength." The speaker was one of the 8 tribes' leaders, the Yaksha. His words found agreement among the assembly. Even Emperor Indra lowered his gaze to look at him. "Yaksha, what do you wish to convey?" Yaksha rose, bowed deeply to Emperor Indra, and declared, "Since the fall of the Huashu kingdom is inevitable, there is no need for them to continue occupying that vast territory and its resources. Therefore, I propose we take proactive action to help them relinquish the regions they can no longer defend." At these words, the expressions of all present grew subtly tense. Having a powerful neighbor had never been a blessing, and surpassing Huashu kingdom had long been the dream of the Brahma people. A flicker of emotion crossed Emperor Indra's face. "Oh? At a time like this, while they fight the underground civilization head-on, it wouldn't be right for us to do such a thing, would it?" Yaksha interjected, "Heavenly Emperor, it's not like that. The southwest of Huashu kingdom is a profoundly mysterious land. Beneath its surface lies a hidden ancient civilization. Our previous explorations concluded that the underground treasures are boundless. That is a treasure belonging to all humanity. We cannot allow Huashu kingdom to monopolize it. Especially now that they lack the strength to protect it, is it not our rightful duty to safeguard humanity's heritage?" Emperor Indra smiled upon hearing these words. He nodded. "Yaksha speaks with great wisdom. All this is to fulfill our responsibility as the world's great power, the Brahmanas." He looked down at Yaksa and the other mutants seated beside him. "Yaksa, Maharaja. Lead your forces to the southwest of Huashu kingdom. Aid them in safeguarding humanity's civilizational treasures." Yaksa and Maharaja immediately bowed before Emperor Indra. "We obey your command, Heavenly Emperor." Across the entire temple, fervor ignited in nearly every face. After so many years, they finally had the chance to strike while the Huashu kingdom was weakened, to deliver a crushing blow. Yet among the crowd, a few faces betrayed unease. Yet faced with Emperor Indra and his cohorts, driven by their ambition to achieve greatness, and mindful of the surging nationalist fervor within the Brahma kingdom, they wisely chose to remain silent. Tianhai City. The Hades gatekeepers' strike, the void destiny, swept through, utterly flattening the city's central district. It was transformed into a vast, deep ravine, as if bombarded by the Reaper of Love. A violent storm erupted from Tianhai City, sweeping outwards across the surrounding areas. Fortunately, the 36 heavenly spirits were positioned far from the explosion's epicenter. Had even a fraction of that power grazed them, they would have been instantly obliterated into dust. Even so, the sheer terror of that force left them trembling with fear. At that very moment, after unleashing his void destiny, the Hades gatekeeper seemed to realize he hadn't destroyed the maze array or killed anyone aboard the ghost train. This sparked a flicker of doubt within him. This shouldn't be happening. He had absolute confidence in his power. It was inconceivable that his attack would yield no effect whatsoever. His mind immediately plunged into deep thought. Their tactic against me was to use perception-distorting mist to prevent my smooth departure from this area. Then, utilizing space ability, they manipulated the train as a vehicle to launch a surprise attack. My Void Destiny strike can instantly sweep a vast surrounding area. This means their space shuffle ability must reach farther, or they possess other means to block my attack. He crossed his arms, one hand supporting his chin. Dragging this out with them will only make things worse for me. Forget it. The Hades gatekeeper had no intention of wasting more time. So he simply closed his eyes. If both eyes and senses could deceive, then closing them entirely would prevent being misled by the 5 senses. He arbitrarily selected a direction and flew toward it without hesitation. In the void, the ghost train materialized once more. Seeing the colossal crater on the earth below, Zhang Yi and the others still felt a lingering dread. Just then, Daisheng's urgent voice came through the communication channel, alerting them. Bad news. That guy seems to have found a way out of the 8-trigram formation. In his perception, the trapped monster was streaking in a straight line toward the northwest of Tianhai City. Zhang Yi chuckled softly. Well, that was to be expected. The so-called maze was merely a clever trick. Once its flaw was exposed, it would easily become ineffective. They had delayed the Hades gatekeeper for nearly 8 minutes. The 36 heavenly spirits had flawlessly completed their mission. But what do we do next? Li Changgong asked anxiously. On our home turf, we couldn't gain an advantage using all our preparations. Once he leaves Tianhai City, how can we fight him? He won't get away. Zhang Yi cut him off abruptly. Li Changgong and Shang Daowen, who had been about to say something, now stared at Zhang Yi in astonishment. Why had Zhang Yi suddenly become so resolute? Zhang Yi glanced at them coldly. The Hades gatekeeper is powerful and clever, but my people aren't useless either. He could see through our abilities and formations, but didn't we use that time to gather intelligence on him? It turned out Yang Xinxin's side had already obtained analysis results through intelligence networks across all major regions. The reason the previous Reaper of Love attack was blocked by the Hades gatekeeper was because they used a special weapon to deflect its impact. Li Changgong frowned upon hearing this. So what? That only proves we can't kill him with the Reaper of Love. No, that's not the case. Zhang Yi addressed Daisheng, don't let him leave Tianhai City. Otherwise, we truly won't win. Now, immediately track his movements. Li Changgong cursed inwardly, chaos, have you truly lost your mind? But now, fighting to the death was their only option. Once the underworld gatekeeper left Tianhai City, there would likely be no one left to hold him back, even for a moment. After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he glanced at Li Changgong and the others. His gaze lowered slightly, as if trying to pierce through the carriage to see the young girl seated inside. Next, I'll be leaving for a while. 30 seconds, you guys hold him off for 30 seconds. Li Changgong nearly jumped out of his skin. Zhang Yi was their primary defensive force. If he left, who could withstand the Hades gatekeeper's assault? Shang Daowen also asked in confusion. Chaos, what exactly are you trying to do? There's no time to explain. If you want to win, do as I say. Zhang Yi's tone was urgent. At the underworld gatekeeper's speed, he'd be out of Tianhai City's territory in under a minute. By then, executing the plan would become incredibly difficult. Alexei remained silent. He'd always been a man of action, rarely speaking. Li Changgong's expression twisted. He even suspected Zhang Yi intended to abandon them and flee. But upon reflection, it didn't make sense. If Zhang Yi truly wanted to flee, he could have done so any time. There was no need to drag them into this mess now. Thoughts raced through their minds, but time was relentless. Just then, Hotu spoke. Do as he says. It turned out that earlier, Yang Xinxin had already communicated with Hotu. Only she could persuade Hotu so swiftly. Seeing Hotu's endorsement, Shang Daowen naturally had no objections. Now, Li Changgong's stance clearly mattered little. Daisheng immediately activated his ability. The ghost train instantly materialized before the speeding Hades gatekeeper. The instant the ghost train materialized, Zhang Yi's figure vanished from the train's deck. Li Changgong's face twisted in frustration, but now he had no choice but to grit his teeth and fight. The Hades gatekeeper's path blocked, he was forced to open his eyes and face the enemy before him. This directly disrupted his previous trajectory, trapping him once more within the 8 trigrams formation. Gazing upon the humans who dared obstruct him, the Hades gatekeeper's eyes brimmed with lofty disdain. Without a word, he unleashed the Void Destiny Strike, instantly enveloping the ghost train. Hotua's eyes snapped open. For the first time, a piercing light erupted from her dark orbs. The 6 paths of reincarnation unfolded around the train's hull. For Epsilon-class spirits, Black Sun, Dagua, Shadow Phantom, and Miatang were summoned. Countless hellish souls, their bodies aflame with nether fire, crawled forth from the depths of Hades, snarling as they advanced toward the Hades gatekeeper. And the space-based weapon, suspended high in the sky, unleashed their might for the very first time in this battle. 6 military satellites, their solar wings fully extended, fired energy beams that pierced the sky at this most critical moment. Sky and Earth, all immense power converged upon a single target, the arrogant Grand Marshal of the Wuluan Empire. The Hades gatekeeper's heart jolted with sudden alarm. Though he had known from the start of the battle that humanity possessed such formidable weapons from the heavens, he had dismissed them entirely. Moreover, the prolonged battle had seen no deployment of these weapons, fostering a hint of complacency. He never imagined that this time, Hotu would unleash her full might from the very start, directing the energy cannons of 6 space-based weapons straight at his head. Boom! A huge mushroom cloud erupted in the northwest region of Tianhai City as countless chaotic energies collided. Hotua's 6 paths of reincarnation were nearly obliterated by this strike, and all her summoned entities were reduced to ashes. Li Changgong, Alexei, and Shang Daowen strained every ounce of strength to withstand the assault on the ghost train. Yet when that colossal force struck the train, it was like a boxer's full-power punch hitting a sandbag, sending it reeling and warping it out of shape. Whatever material it was made of, it clearly possessed super-advanced technology. Otherwise, an ordinary train would have been utterly destroyed by the mere aftershocks of the battle. Even so, it was hurled violently backward, its form shattered. The Hades gatekeeper's power nearly shredded Li Changgong's internal organs. He now felt like a torn rag tossed into a washing machine, violently churned and spun. Cough. Cough cough. Gushes of blood spurted from Li Changgong's mouth. He felt death approaching. Zhang. Zhang Yi, you bastard. Hurry the hell over. Blood-tinged curses spewed from Li Changgong's mouth. Meanwhile, the Hades gatekeeper stood unscathed in the sky, having withstood Hotua's full-force strike. He glanced up at the cloudless sky. The weapon suspended in the heavens intrigued him, it had actually stirred a genuine sense of danger within him. Had he not unleashed his full power, he might have been wounded himself. At present, everyone aboard the ghost train was injured. Dai Sheng, who wasn't inside a carriage but piloting the locomotive farther ahead, had only been grazed by the residual shockwave. Even so, he lay critically wounded, near death, and had completely lost consciousness. His unconscious state prevented the ghost train from traversing the spatial node. Instead, it crashed pitifully onto the snow-covered ground, tumbling violently over a dozen times like a dead dragon writhing across the earth. The Hades gatekeeper's gaze swept over the scene. It seems we can declare this over. He spoke, raising his right hand. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm them, Zhang Yi finally appeared aboard the train. Do not resist this power. Come. Zhang Yi's voice echoed in each passenger's ears. The Hades gatekeeper's star of destruction had locked onto their position, yet Zhang Yi opened a dimensional gate as easily as unzipping a garment. In the instant the attack was about to strike, he pulled the entire train through the dimensional gate. The moment the dimensional rift closed, the Hades gatekeeper's assault obliterated the entire area within dozens of kilometers. Zhang Yi and his companions evaded the Hades gatekeeper's attack, causing a flicker of surprise to pass through the gatekeeper's eyes. They can escape like that? Just as he prepared to leave the mist-shrouded area of Tianhai City and unleash a killing spree, an intensely powerful death omen suddenly surged from the depths of his being. It was a long-forgotten sensation, the premonition of death he had long since forgotten. As a high-level mutant, an entity approaching godhood within the Wuluan Empire, he should no longer experience such feelings. The Hades gatekeeper instinctively sought to flee the immediate area, but he remained trapped within the maze array, having long since lost his bearings. In that split second of hesitation, a terrifying force erupted from 500 meters beneath his feet, accompanied by a blinding light. The maze array over Tianhai City lost its effect in that instant. That overwhelming power, like detonating 100,000 stars, completely illuminated every surrounding area of Tianhai City. Mutants on several battlefields were temporarily blinded. Only then did the ear-shattering roar erupt from the earth. Boom! A colossal, searing orb erupted, expanding relentlessly as it rose skyward, culminating in a thunderous explosion that formed a terrifying, supersized mushroom cloud. Representatives from global powers observing this battlefield wore grim expressions. Reaper of Love. Ultra high yield. But, Cardinal of the Holy See frowned. When did they launch it? The launch of a Reaper of Love is so massive that opening the silo alone triggers detection by satellites worldwide. Silently detonating one is virtually impossible. Yet here, on the soil of Huashu Kingdom, it had undeniably occurred. In the Xinjiang Region Command Center, Meng Yuanjun abruptly stood, his eyes fixed intently on the large screen before him. The entire Operations Command Center was engulfed in stunned silence. An explosion of such terrifying magnitude, even Ho Tu and the others would be utterly defenseless against it, likely reduced to ashes. Only Liang Yu and the others understood. As long as Zhang Yi was present, they faced no danger. Was absolute defense truly a joke? Perhaps it had been in the past. But since Zhang Yi mastered the ability Void World Departure, he could at least maintain true invincibility for over a minute. By concealing himself within another realm, completely severed from the real world, no one could kill him as long as he remained hidden. The earth-shattering explosion erupted, with the Hades gatekeeper standing right at its epicenter. Just as Liang Yu had envisioned, Zhang Yi had now transported everyone into the alternate dimension. Time flowed incredibly slowly within this alternate space, yet human consciousness did not belong to this world. Thus, Shang Daowen and the others, entering for the first time, experienced a distinct sense of disconnection. They felt as if immobilized by a spell, their bodies nearly unable to move, yet their minds could perceive everything with crystal clarity. This sensation was undeniably excruciating. Even Zhang Yi, with his extensive training, could not endure such mental torment for long. Li Changgong, in particular, felt a deep-seated dread rising within him. Back when he fought Zhang Yi, he had realized he absolutely must not breach Zhang Yi's dimensional gate. Only now did he understand, if you actually entered, the outcome was either death or a fate worse than death. Though both were space ability mutants, Zhang Yi's abilities were far more comprehensive than his own. A powerful wave of jealousy surged involuntarily within Li Changgong. Yet the thought that Zhang Yi also possessed time abilities rendered that envy utterly futile. The chasm between individuals could stretch beyond imagination. When your abilities surpass those around you by only a fraction, they will envy you, resent you, constantly dreaming of your downfall or their own eventual triumph. But when your power becomes overwhelming, so great it inspires despair, their envy vanishes, replaced by reverence. Zhang Yi couldn't concern himself with these men's mental states now. Unable to communicate with them here, he simply left them be. Enduring torment was still preferable to being blown to bits by the Reaper of Love outside. After this battle, Tianhai City was utterly finished. This Reaper of Love was one Zhang Yi had requested from Zhu Jing in advance. It could be called the largest yield Reaper of Love humanity could currently manufacture. Historically, there had been a colossal monster known as the Tsar Bomba. Yet that weapon, due to its colossal size and immense weight, existed merely as a muscle-flexing prestige project, practically impossible to deploy via missile launchers. But Zhang Yi had no need for such a thing. All he needed was to bury this Reaper of Love beneath Tianhai City and detonate it at the opportune moment. This plan was a decision he'd made long ago, known to high-ranking officials across all major districts. They understood that if they truly couldn't defeat the Wuluan Empire's mutant forces, the Reaper of Love would inevitably be deployed. What they hadn't anticipated was Zhang Yi's method. A missile-mounted Reaper of Love could be detected by human technology. Given the Wuluan Empire's civilization, equal to, if not surpassing, humanity's, they would certainly detect it too. The precise interception of the previous Reaper of Love missile had already proven this point. However, Yang Xinxin had the major regions conduct satellite surveys of the site's energy fluctuations. They discovered that the enemy had employed a special weapon to neutralize the Reaper of Love's energy. From this, Zhang Yi could at least grasp one crucial fact. The Hades gatekeeper itself was incapable of blocking a high-yield Reaper of Love. If they relied on such specialized weapons, then detonating the Reaper of Love unexpectedly, without giving them time to react, could yield extraordinary results. It was that simple. Realizing this, his immediate action was to swiftly relocate the prepared, high-yield Reaper of Love. Meanwhile, Hotu and others drew the Hades gatekeeper's attention head-on. At that moment, the Reaper of Love would detonate unexpectedly. Then, using the ability Void World Departure, everyone would be saved. This was Zhang Yi's plan. Zhang Yi closed his eyes. In his mind, he had already simulated the upcoming battle plan countless times. Time stretched endlessly within the alternate dimension, granting him ample opportunity to meticulously plan every subsequent move. The optimal outcome would be the Hades gatekeeper being instantly obliterated by the Reaper of Love's blast, a scenario that would declare their victory outright. Even if the gatekeeper retained some combat capability, it would inevitably suffer severe damage. Given his current ability index of 28,000 points, a fully intact Zhang Yi, along with his few gravely wounded companions, still had a chance to kill the enemy. At the very least, they could force the enemy to flee. But if the enemy could withstand even this eruption of the Reaper of Love's power. Sorry, but Zhang Yi would simply take everyone and flee immediately. If it's impossible, there's no point in trying. Over a minute felt like an eternity. Zhang Yi held back until his mind reached its limit before finally opening the dimensional gate's exit. This explosion wasn't instantaneous, it continuously released extreme heat and intense radiation. Fortunately, they had prepared in advance, anticipating the potential use of the Reaper of Love. Their combat suits were equipped with radiation-blocking capabilities. Tianhai City, scorched as if by a raging inferno, had air so searing it warped. A massive, charred figure knelt on the ground, one hand clutching his chest. The once mighty Hades gatekeeper struggled to rise. Yet even this simple motion forced a torrent of blood from his mouth. His original form was unrecognizable now. His entire body resembled charcoal, pitiful beyond words, yet hideously terrifying like a demon from hell. Zhang Yi emerged from the void, followed by a ghost train that was nearly destroyed. Hotu and the others were in poor mental states. After all, this was their first experience of being nearly sealed away. On a spiritual sensory level, they had been unable to move for months. After Zhang Yi appeared, he still kept a wary eye on the enormous, charred monster in the distance. The vines of the sword in the tree in his hand swayed restlessly, ready to form the net for defense at any moment. Yet, upon merely glancing at it, the sword in the tree in Zhang Yi's hand erupted suddenly. Silver vines coalesced into a sharp, silver spike, shooting straight toward the Hades gatekeeper. He was always cautious, but delaying further might grant the enemy time to recover. Zhang Yi dared not gamble on that. Facing Zhang Yi's assault, the Hades gatekeeper whipped his head around, his bloodshot eyes blazing with an icy, murderous intent. He raised his right fist, slamming it down with brutal force toward the silver spike. Boom! The sword in the tree pierced through his shoulder, sending a torrent of green blood spraying out. His fist was ultimately a fraction of a second too slow, failing to block Zhang Yi's strike. A faint smirk touched Zhang Yi's lips. Indeed, even though you survived the explosion of the Reaper of Love, you've already exhausted your strength. The sword in the tree contracted, transforming into a sword over 2 meters long. Zhang Yi's gaze turned savage as dark power surged behind him like a tidal wave. A colossal void vortex spun behind him like a wheel of fate. That immense power coursed through his entire body, finally converging upon the blade of the sword in the tree. The blade turned pitch black, its surging power coalescing into a single point at the tip. Boom! Thunderous roars echoed. Alexei was the first to recover among the group. Wielding 2 battle axes, he unleashed Thunder Call, standing beside Zhang Yi as they launched their attacks simultaneously. Both attacks launched simultaneously, targeting the gravely wounded figure in the distance. Boom! A violent explosion echoed once more across Tianhai City's scorched landscape. The Reaper of Love's eruption signaled the war's final phase. Success or failure, they must now strike with everything they had. Liang Yuan Flower, who had been on standby for quite some time, hesitated no longer. They were both on the communication channel, aware of the situation across all battlefields. Both sides were well prepared this time, and it was difficult for high-level mutants to kill each other, so the situation on all battlefields was deadlocked. Their reinforcements were waiting until now to be able to exert the greatest effect. "Let's go, Flower," Liang Yu declared. Meow-woo, Flower rose to its feet, its massive form unfurling a pair of wings. Liang Yu leapt onto its back. Flower soared skyward, following the High Command's guidance toward the distant target. Their objective was crystal clear. Minutes later, Flower flapped its wings and descended upon the neighboring city of Jianghua. This was the battlefield where Chen Xuanba and Han Shanzhua were engaged. Facing them were their old adversaries, the duo of Giant Blade and Frost. Their last encounter had ended in stalemate, and this battle was proving just as fiercely contested. By the time Liang Yu and Flower arrived, both Chen Xuanba and Giant Blade were covered in blood, their combat suits and armor shattered beyond repair. A gruesome, terrifying gash ran across Chen Xuanba's waist, as if he'd nearly been sliced clean in two. Though she hadn't witnessed the battle, Liang Yu could imagine just how perilous the fight had been. The sight of Liang Yu and Flower arriving caused Giant Blade and Frost to instantly change color. "Reinforcements?" Han Shanzhua exhaled in relief. "You're finally here. Thank goodness. Otherwise, we might have truly perished today." Though Flower and Liang Yu were merely white charioteer mutants, in the current situation, their full strength would decisively tip the scales. Liang Yu glanced at the battered mutants, slowly drawing the dragon's roar from her hand, and strode toward the center of the battlefield. "You'd better rest. Leave the next battle to me." She could see Chen Xuanba's injuries were severe. If the fight continued, the desperate enemy might have a chance to take him down. Chen Xuanba's lips curled into a cold smile at her words. "Hey, woman," he sneered. "Are you looking down on me?" Flower turned and let out a low growl in his direction. Liang Yu didn't even turn her head, merely stating flatly, "Minimizing casualties on the battlefield is the wisest choice. Foolhardy bravery serves no purpose." Chen Xuanba heard these words and smiled with a hint of amusement. "But you'd better be careful. Even though the creature before you is severely wounded, a beast remains a beast. Especially a wounded beast, that's when it's most dangerous." "Underestimating me?" Liang Yu arched an eyebrow. "Sorry, but I never underestimate my opponents. But don't you dare underestimate me either." Choosing this battlefield for initial support wasn't without calculation. As an enhancement-type mutant, Liang Yu targeting the gravely wounded Giant Blade was the wisest choice.